Hi everyone. In this SUP with SAP video, we're going to explore the basic mechanics that you will use to manipulate the SAP client in this class. Let's go ahead and get started. First things first, if you're interested in running SAP on your own personal device, you're going to need to download the most current client. Students at Texas A&M can go to sap.tamu.edu and find clients for either the Windows operating system or Mac. And you can see there are some additional instructions for both of those clients. The client install is fairly straightforward, but feel free to visit with your TA or your instructor if you're having any issues. Once you've installed your client on your device, you're going to need to log into the specific client that you'll be using for your particular semester. And this does change from semester to semester. So the instructor, me, is going to change the information at the top of this video. But if you're still having issues, do check and make sure that you're looking at the most current information in terms of the particular server and client that you're using for your semester that you're taking this class. Once you find the specific server, you just double click. You'll then need to type a client number. And then you'll need to type your username. And your username will typically be supplied in eCampus or Canvas in the gradebook or via email to you. And at the moment, the username is starting with the word learn and a dash, and then your unique 3-digit code. And the 3-digit code that you type after learn is going to come up not just in your login, but throughout your usage of the client. There are going to be lots of things that are specific to your username. So make sure you know what this number is. I'm demonstrating a specific username. And then use the password that's provided to you for your first login. After you have logged in the very first time, you're going to be prompted for a new password. And this needs to be something that's secure. Something with uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols, like any other password you might use on a secure site. Once you successfully logged in, you'll be presented with the SAP menu. Even though we are going to be manipulating a fictitious company, Global Bike, throughout the semester, this is the actual interface that you would be presented in any SAP client for any real company. So all of these menu choices would be available. And all of the transactions that we'll be exploring this semester are real transactions that you could use in an SAP client anywhere in the world. I'm going to suggest that you change a couple things in the interface to make your use of the client a little bit easier through the semester. First thing I'm going to do is in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to click on the little caret to expand the system information. And then I'm going to suggest that you change this choice to transaction if it's not already displayed. What this does is it will display whatever transaction you're currently manipulating inside the system, just in case you've lost track. The second thing that I'm going to suggest you do is go into the More menu choice, go to Extras, and go to Settings. And I'm going to suggest that you check the box for Display Technical Names. What this does is when you manipulate various transactions in the menu options, you'll see the actual shortcut for that transaction in the menu. So for instance, this ME22N for changing a purchase order wouldn't normally be displayed. But by checking that box, now I can see the shortcut to the transaction code. And that's particularly useful for learning the easiest way to get to a transaction, which is to type the transaction code in the upper left-hand corner. So for instance, if I wanted to create a sales order, I know by memory that the transaction code is VA01. I don't need to navigate through the menus, which can be quite tedious. I can just type the transaction code and hit enter, and the system will open that specific transaction for me. If you are moving from one transaction to another, you don't necessarily have to follow with my examples where I use the back button to get to the menu choice, and then I manipulate the menus or I type a new transaction. If I were in VA01 and after finishing some of it, I wanted to immediately go to a new transaction, in the upper left-hand corner, I can type a /n followed immediately with no spaces or additional characters with the next transaction code, for instance, VL01N. What this is going to do is close the current transaction and immediately open a new transaction. So you can move from one transaction to another very smoothly. You'll also notice that usually when I type my transactions in the upper left-hand corner, I type them in capital letters, but you don't have to. SAP is not case sensitive, so if I type them in lowercase letters, they'll work just fine. When you're in a specific transaction, you will often be manipulating either the green checkbox or the diskette save button, and they serve different purposes. The green checkbox is asking the system to check all of your entries on the screen to see if there are any issues, and you may get either errors or warnings that you can then respond to. The diskette is actually saving the transaction and committing to it. So as long as you haven't clicked the actual disk save button, you can back out of a transaction without having affected the system at all. If you get errors that you can't seem to recover from, you can't seem to solve something, your best bet is often to back out of the transaction and then go back in from scratch and start over again. And as long as you've not clicked the save button successfully, there's no harm, no foul. Also, I click the green checkbox lots of times to check my work as I'm moving through a transaction, and there is no commitment by clicking on the green checkbox, so feel free to use that as much as you would like. The last very useful feature that I'm going to show you today is using multiple windows at the same time. There is an icon in the upper right-hand corner that looks like a window with a star in the lower right-hand corner of it. And when you hover over it, it says New Graphical User Interface Window. The shortcut key on your keyboard is Control and then the plus sign on your numpad, not just the regular plus sign. But you can also just click this button. And by doing so, you will open a second transaction window. It's really useful sometimes to have multiple transactions open at the same time, one for display and the other for manipulation, for example. And one of the things that I do on a regular basis is I set these up as panels on my screen. In Windows, if you hold down the Windows key and then a right or a left arrow, you can move a panel to one side of your screen, and then you can open the other panel on the other side of your screen. So now I've basically got a split screen where I've got two different transaction windows open, and I can manipulate both of them at the exact same time. So Windows and left arrow or right arrow will get you these half panels on your screen, which is really handy. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.